Okay people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Tonight I'm taking a look at the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series director Krennic and the Scarif Stormtrooper squad leader, or it's also called the Shore Trooper. Even though it looks mostly like the tank driver, changes to the color and the helmet and little itty bitty things here and there. And with Krennic, I was excited about him. I'm always excited for officers. If he does well, hopefully there will be more Imperial officers down the road. But the packaging here, it's what we're used to. It's the box with the red background. This was a change that was made last year during the big build up to The Force Awakens, and they've just stuck with it through this movie. I don't know if they're only changing it for the big episode movies, or if they like this so much that they're just keeping it. It is a nice design. The figures really contrast against the red background. They stick out. Then these pictures down in the corner, I like these. They kind of just blend in. I can see why they want to stick with this. On the side you have the numbers 27 and 28. I do have C-3PO, but I'm going to do him separate because there's going to be a lot of comparison there. On the back, it's the pictures from the front, and then information about the characters themselves. And this even calls it a Shore Trooper over here on this side. So I guess you can go either way with that. So I'm going to get these open and see if my excitement for these was warranted. And there you go, all out of the package. And as you can see, this is what we were expecting. I mean, there's no surprises here. We've seen a lot of promotional pictures of these guys, which is unusual for Hasbro, and it kind of kills the excitement a little bit, but getting plastic in hand, always a little bit better. But let's take a look at the Scarif Stormtrooper first. Sculpt-wise, it's reuse of the Toys R Us exclusive hover tank driver. Most part, the helmet's different and the belt is different. Everything else is exactly the same. It's kind of awesome how much a color palette change will make you think it's different. Now the paintwork here, I like that it's kind of distressed. There's some weathering, if not just thrown on mud. Base color is kind of a beige brownish color, and then everything is built on top of that. But the blue across the chest and then on the right shoulder, I like how it's not just a straight line. And to get the comparison out of the way, like I said, it's total reuse all the way down. But as you can see, the belts different. They've added this skirt piece, and then of course the two helmets. So saying all that, the articulation is exactly the same as the tank driver, so I'm not going to go through all that, but I do want to point out that it's not the softest material in the world, but because it's split all the way up, if you want to bend it, it does get out of the way. Big gripe of mine though is on the tank driver, they painted this kind of buckle where the strap comes up and over and attaches to the armor. On the Shore Trooper here, they didn't paint it. It's just plain. Almost makes me want to paint that because I like that little added detail. It's almost like they went, well, we had to throw all this paint on and get this line straight and that kind of thing, so we'll just skip that. For his weapon, he has a different weapon than the rest of them. It almost looks like a Stormtrooper blaster, but there's been a lot of changes. The thing about these new weapons, and I think it was like that with the tank driver too, they grips seem kind of short, so when you get it in his hand, it's kind of hard to get his finger into the trigger. Because of the angle of it and how short it is, it kind of pulls against itself. But he can hit a two-handed pose easily, and that's what I want from a Stormtrooper. I want them to be able to aim. You can even get him up to, well, pretty much a pose where the stock is against his shoulder. He can almost aim down it. A Stormtrooper that can hold his weapon right, that's another plus for this figure. I like that. And then there's Krennic. Not the most exciting figure ever, but I like characters like this. It is a nice sculpt all the way around. All the paintwork is nice and tight. Everything's where it needs to be, where it should be. And then the texture all over the body is a nice addition. I like that. And to get this comparison out of the way, because I hear a lot of people saying that he's reuse of General Hux, he's not. He doesn't reuse any of it. I thought maybe he reused the hands, but not even those. The fingers are in different positions, at least on the left hand. The right is a gripping hand. It's kind of harder to tell, but I'm pretty sure it's a new sculpt. I do have an issue with the articulation, and that's in the legs here. It's kind of loose. It doesn't like to stand completely straight up. The knee wants to kick a little bit. It's not terrible, but it's also not that great. Another thing is the knees are like a matte black, while the legs and even the bottom here are more of a, not glossy, but it has a sheen to it. And you can see the difference here whenever you get the right light on it. Other than that, though, everything else nice and sharp. These little pins or whatever they are, I always assume they're ink pens. I don't know what they are. Could be a little bit more wash to the hair to kind of separate that out, but it's the same problem we had with Old Man Han. The eyes on mine are just slightly cross-eyed. I mean, it looks like the left eye is barely looking over at the nose. It's not that noticeable unless you look just straight on. But for articulation, he has a ball on the top of a hinge. There's some side to side here. Better than what we've seen with a lot of figures lately. You can look up, you can look down. Hinge and swivel at the shoulder, comes up to there, and then of course it swivels around. Hinge and swivel at the elbow, gets up to about 90, and then you have the swivel. Hinge and swivel at the wrist, you have in and out, and then swivel. Have a ball joint at the belt. It's not the greatest in the world. It gets about like that, forward about there. But he's an officer. And I know a lot of people think I'm an apologist for that when a character doesn't get full range of movement, and I say it's because of the character itself. That's just the way I feel. I'm not going to be posing him in kung fu poses or any kind of crazy poses. To me, he's going to be standing and, you know, just looking badass, and he just barks the orders. He just, you know, lays down the commands, and I'm good with that. The hips are on a hinge and swivel. They go forward and back. The skirt kind of gets in the way here, and then they go out this far. And that's not even skirt holding it back. That's articulation. But again, officer, he's not going to be doing high kicks. Have a swivel at the thigh. Double knee gets about right here. The sculpt of the pants gets in the way right there. Hinge at the ankle, goes all the way back, goes forward okay, and then forward facing pin for rocker. When it comes with a pistol, it's kind of dull. It's just cast in gray with a little brown paint for the grip and the lower detail. But overall, it just comes off plain. It goes into his holster like this. It's a left-hand draw, I guess, across the torso. Now the cape is interesting. I know a lot of people hate cloth, but at the same time, when a cape comes like this, where it's pretty much just a hard candy shell over the figure, I don't know. I guess it's okay, but trying to manipulate him to stand up while wearing the cape can be a little tricky. And I'm not saying I'm a fan of cloth, but when it's useful, it's useful. When it's better, it's better. So at the end of the day, two very nice additions to the shelf. I can't wait to find the Scarif Grunt because he needs more troops. I like having a little platoon. And while I usually prefer the model kit, I have absolutely no problem with this Scarif Stormtrooper. It's going to go on the shelf. They're all going to go together. So no matter how many models and how many grunts I get, they're all just going to be bunched together up on the shelf. And then there's Krennic. I love having an officer standing in front of my troops or beside my big bads, you know, to throw a little bit of different flavor on the shelf. And especially having him in white, it's different. Yeah, I know, classic Stormtroopers, they're all white, so it's a lot of white on the shelf. I'm talking about the major bad guys. Plus, having this base body ready to go, they could give us a Tarkin, or you can buy another one and make a Tarkin. There's plenty of cast heads out there. But being in white like this makes me think Grand Admiral Thrawn. Especially now that he's in the Rebels cartoon, he's there, he's in canon. We need a figure of him now. That would be awesome. Now these should be hitting retail about now. I got mine from Fwoosh sponsor Woozy Moo. Now I usually go through the whole wave at the same time, at least all the new figures in a wave at the same time. But like I said, I wanted to hold off on C-3PO. He's going to be more comparison oriented. I have to pull a lot more figures into the review space here. C-3PO be coming very soon. If you like this review, comment, like, subscribe. I'll catch you on the Fwoosh.